people in adoption land. Hi. Whoa, what a week it's been in the media, in my personal life, in our families' lives, and I'm here to spill it all. So, who else is here for it? In my personal life, I just celebrated my son as he became a bar mitzvah in the Jewish world. He became a man. Just like that, at age 13, the Jews say, "You're a man now." So we did that. That was, you guys, it was magic. That's the only way I know how to explain it. The whole weekend was magic. So let me tell you a couple things about it. And if you think this doesn't have to do with adoption, oh, it does. It does. So stay with me. Hold on, please. So the bar mitzvah was on Saturday. On Thursday, we welcomed into our home my son's dad, his birth father, his wife, and my dad's birth father's wife, not my son's wife, and four of my son's half siblings who stayed with us for 6 nights. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful to see them all just hanging out and basking in each other's company. And it worked out so, so great. So that was part of it. And it was amazing that, here is a family who has never heard of a bar mitzvah, probably never knew Jewish people, and they came, they celebrated, they participated. He was up and said some words, and we hugged together and we cried together and we laughed together, and it was just a beautiful, magical weekend. And other than that, I'm a single mom. I kind of did all of this on my own accord. Obviously, you can't do anything without your village. So shout out to all my villagers. You know who you are. But literally, we were up on a ladder all day on Friday, hanging Mexican flags and lights and putting things together and putting all the centerpieces together. And it all worked. The whole thing. We had a Friday night dinner, Saturday morning service, then a lunch, then a party, then a Sunday brunch at my house. And then they left yesterday we got up and said goodbye to them at 4:30 in the morning. Needless to say, we are tired. And my son's homesick today. But what a beautiful testament to open adoption. It was, I just can't say much more about it. It was really, really amazing. So there's that. While all this bar mitzvah celebration was going on, evidently a letter came out from the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, to adoption intermediaries, warning them against misleading parents. And evidently, lots of consultants, facilitators, advertisers received this warning letter. I did not, thankfully, although I did read every word and it really has nothing to do with me. They're really warning people who are intermediaries between families and birth moms who are making an adoption plan, charging people to be the intermediary, even though they are unlicensed entities. Now, adoptions consultants are also not licensed. technically we are not intermediaries. We do not work with birth moms, so they are not on one side of the equation for us. At least they shouldn't be. If you are working with a consultant and you know they do work with expectant moms, you might want to be careful. I do not work with expectant moms. I never have worked with expectant moms. I've never been on the phone with an expectant mom other than to interview them and to learn from them. I have never been in a room with an expectant mom. I've never been in a room where my families were signing adoption papers. So I don't have anything to do with that. So as I read this, I did not feel threatened, as I don't think that it's talking to me. Although a lot of consultants did get it. Why? I don't know. I don't know that everybody deserved to get it. But certainly it was a warning for people to be more open and transparent with numbers and not make promises that you can't keep. While I may say that I can help families adopt quicker than they might be able to do it on their own, that is mostly true. And the majority of our families have indeed adopted in less than a year from either signing up with us or at least signing up with their agencies. We have all of the backing to show that. Our statistics are on our website and we have the paperwork to prove it. So we are not representing anything that isn't the norm for our families under our services. So there's that. I guess another interesting article was just came out through the New York Post, I think it was, the imprint, about adoption, not the imprint, the New York Post, about adoption and race, naming some big players in the adoption world. So there's that. Things to look out for. So many different views, it's so complicated. I just did an interview with somebody for one of my podcast episodes talking about ethics and who makes the decisions, what's ethical, what's not ethical. Some of it is black and white, but most of it is gray. And it's really, really difficult. And I think there's a lot of new laws about advertisers and support to birth moms, and it's all still so gray because there are so many nuances in adoption. Okay, inside of our community, we had a lot of discussions, so I want to bring up what is being talked about. And the first thing is around grants and subsidies. So we asked our families, out of curiosity, who received grants and subsidies and what that looked like and how that helped them, etc. So I want to read some of those answers because I think it could be really helpful for you, and it may give you some ideas. It also may, just spark some little nuggets for you. One person said, I was laid off from my company before we had the pleasure of adopting our son. However, the company provides $40,000 in adoption or surrogacy benefits for all U.S. employers. We tapped into about $17,000 of this prior to and after my layoff, but before I lost benefits. This paid for consulting services, our home study fees, and to get on the list of a few agencies. We were devastated to lose this money prior to finalizing, and I sent a letter to the CEO explaining the impact of this layoff on employees on the adoption or surrogacy journey, which turned quite a few heads, but ultimately didn't help us. Good for her. I feel very fortunate to have had access to the money that we did and know that And know that had we not had it, things certainly would have been a little bit more challenging for us. Someone else said, I was reimbursed $25,000 from my company after the adoption was final. Once we finalized, we sent a receipt for our agency fees for match placement, which covered the entire $25,000. Wow. Keep in mind, it was taxed like a bonus, so we lost a good chunk of that to tax. It also increased our taxable income for the year, which could put you in a higher tax bracket. This was information that I really struggled to find, so had no insight until it was paid on how it would work with taxes. Great insight. I had no idea of that either, and I don't know if all companies work that way or not. I would venture to guess that they do. I am thirsty, excuse me. Another person who works for a university said that they provided 10,000 in adoption related reimbursements. Interestingly, they provided the reimbursement whether the adoption was successful or fails or falls through. They pay upon placement rather than finalization, which was a very nice perk with all the new baby expenses that were incurred when we brought our little boy home. Another person said no help from either of our employees at the time. We just saved up and paid for everything along the way. My employer started providing $25,000 in adoption reimbursement a few years ago. Can apply for reimbursement after placement and up to 6 months after finalization. We ended up submitting after finalization when we had our final agency statement and were able to get it better coordinated with our adoption tax credit plan. This did not impact a lot of decisions we made because we knew we still needed the money up front. And we tried to approach the process as if the money wasn't going to come through. Policies change, job situations change, as we just read, etc. So we knew it wasn't safe to depend on the refund coming through later, but was a relief when it did for sure. Getting this later on did help with all the new baby expenses, fortify emergency fund, and start a college fund for the baby. We had access to $0, but my husband was offered FMLA, which is definitely something to ask about. And something people don't know, at least when I went through, is that FMLA does not, the Family Medical Leave Act, allows you to take up to X amount of weeks off for maternity leave. It's unpaid. What a lot of people don't know is that it does not have to be taken all at one time. So you can choose how to take that. So for instance, when I came, I don't know how many months it was, but like I took a week off or 2 weeks off, and then I took off every Friday until I used it all up. So, my husband's work reimbursed us $10,000 once we submitted proof of finalization. We're waiting for our Ohio adoption assistance application to be reviewed. If that's approved, we could get up to $20,000 since our son was medically complex. Okay, this is something else I want to bring up. A lot of states, probably every state, has programs to assist children through adoption. For instance, in Ohio, there is something called the PASS program through something else called Ohio CAN, K-A-N. I don't know what it all, Kinship Adoption Network or something like that. Anyways, this program allows me to access funds for therapeutic services that we may need. And I only qualify because my son was adopted and needs XYZ services, whatever services, any kind of therapeutic services. And you can get up to X amount of thousands of dollars every year. And then every year you need to reapply again. And I think you can just keep getting it as long as you get all the paperwork that they need, a letter from the doctor saying he needs this, blah, blah, blah. and they helped me with it. It's very helpful. And in Ohio, at least, it is not based on financial need. And it is not based on having a child that is medically complex, just needing therapeutic services. Now, medically complex children, if you know up front that you are adopting a child with medical needs, you should be asking the agency you are adopting through if they will apply for a subsidy for you. I think they have to do it. Now, there might be other things that you can apply to, but from my understanding, there are programs, and I had a conversation with Jennifer Kelly on the podcast, which I will link to. But subsidies for medically complex children need to be applied for through the agency that you adopted from. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty positive that that is the situation. So you should be asking your agency up front, are you willing to do this? And if they don't know how, reach out to your consultant, go look it up, try to get them the help they need to help you. So I did want to bring those two things up. One person said, my husband's company did not have any adoption benefits, but we wrote a letter to HR and they added a $5,000 benefit. Bravo. So we received a check after we finalized. Never hurts to ask. I absolutely love that. And if you go to the website of the Dave Thomas Foundation, at least they used to have this, and I think they still do, there is a whole packet that you can download to send to your HR. It also has on that website a list of companies that have adoption benefits. The other person that may know about who has adoption benefits, although it's after the fact, so forget it. I was going to say your adoption finance coach. They help a lot of companies. Their side company, Vesta, helps a lot of companies provide adoption benefits. So it wouldn't hurt to reach out to Vesta. You can look that up. They are an adoption employee benefit company, and it's run by Kelly Ellison, who also runs your adoption finance coach. I will link to that episode as well. Finally, as a teacher, I didn't receive any grants or benefits. I used FMLA leave, which I was only paid for using whatever sick days I had banked with my school district throughout the year. My husband received $10,000 to cover expenses and an additional week of paid leave. So there you have it. There is all sorts of things that you need to know in there, and that if you don't have it, ask. You never know. Okay. The other thing I want to bring up is there was a conversation about the Ronald McDonald House, allowing families to stay with them until ICPC is approved. And there was a question on whether or not you can stay there if your child's not in the NICU, which I think they have to be. I'm not sure. But here were some of the answers about the Ronald McDonald House, which is an amazing benefit and an amazing organization that you should know about if your child is going to have a NICU stay. Not all hospitals and cities have a Ronald McDonald House, but if they do, utilize it. They're wonderful, wonderful places. One of the families said, we stayed in a Ronald McDonald House while our baby was in the NICU, and once she was discharged, the front desk at the Ronald McDonald House told us we were allowed to stay until ICPC cleared. However, my understanding is you only get a room at Ronald McDonald if your baby is in the hospital for an extended period of time, not just for 2 nights. Every house is run differently, so it could be the agency has built a connection with the Ronald McDonald House, and if they are not full with long-staying guests, they may have a room. Interesting. You could also ask your agency if they know. And availability is tough. I wasn't guaranteed a room, and my daughter was in the NICU. I've never heard of them letting someone stay if they're not at the children's hospital. Most births are at other hospitals, they may be specific to the agency. We were at a Ronald McDonald House for a few nights while our daughter was in the NICU. They did continue to stay until she